Hello, I'm Martin Sheen. You're about to see a film that shows the role we can all play in the life of our nation. This film is about the guns that kill over 30,000 people a year in America. 30,000. It's as if we had 5 Columbine High School massacres every single day of the year. What stays with me most from this film are the stories of the people who never imagined this would be their problem. People hurt by a handgun in a night table drawer or in the hands of a child. People who've lost family to accidents, suicides, or murders. People who know from personal experience the terrible price of letting the gun industry continue its business as usual. Do you wish you could help stop this carnage? You can. Remember the extraordinary Million Mom March, when hundreds of thousands gathered in Washington to tell politicians the time to duck this issue is over? Now, a grassroots campaign called First Monday is building on that momentum. It's concrete, practical, and realistic. I'll be back in a few minutes to tell you more about First Monday. But now, let's watch and listen to some people who have learned the lessons of gun violence and who are devoting their lives to saving the lives of others.
On the average, 4,500 children are killed every year in the United States. That's more than any other industrialized nation.
We're just off the map in the rate at which we kill our kids with guns, by putting guns in their hands, by making guns easily accessible to criminals. Every year for the last 10 years, we've lost about 34,000 Americans to firearm injury.
My hope is that someday we will regulate our guns. Other civilized nations already do that.
We know it's a tragedy, we know it's dangerous, we know we're being irresponsible, and we just need to do something about the availability of guns.
I learned to shoot when I was in the Boy Scouts. I've been in the military. I've fired big guns and little guns. And for a long period of time, I was what I would call a gun nut. I owned a lot of guns. I took them apart, put them back together clean. I shot in competition. I understand firearms, and it's my business now to study the effects of firearms in America. I ended up being responsible for the gun account on the House Crime Subcommittee. And one of the first assignments that I had was to put together a hearing on, we called it Kids and Guns. I submit to you that you can't do that and not start thinking about what I regard now as basically slogans. When you see the real-life consequences of a young woman who's a teenager telling you that 2 of her friends have died, one of them literally in her arms, and you say, well, you know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, in fact, guns do kill people. And it's the presence of the firearm in such circumstances that distinguishes America from every other country.
If I look at Philadelphia, we didn't have a Columbine, but we have Columbine almost every day. I mean, we have a child killed here every other day.
We see more and more handguns out there, easier access to handguns. There's handguns everywhere in the city. 80% of our murders in the city of Philadelphia are by gunshot wound. So 8 out of 10 murders that occur in the city are by guns. The weapon of choice, really, that we see in most of our murders and aggravated assaults are 9mm. They're cheap guns that cost a couple $100. The toll it takes on human life and the tragedy and the suffering that goes on as a result of easy access to handguns in this country, and Philadelphia in particular, is devastating. It's frightening.
It's harder to get a car than it is to get a gun. I think that's absolutely amazing. I mean, you have to take a written test, you have to take a driving test, you have to get insurance for your car. There are all kinds of requirements to which you're subjected to be able to legally drive in the United States, in any city, county, state, or in this nation. But with guns, you don't have those requirements.
It's terrible to have to lose your loved one like that. And especially if they're in good health and everything and nothing's wrong with them. And they go like that, you're never the same. I cannot express myself to you how I feel. And he hugged and kissed me and so forth. Grandma, I'll give you a call to let you know everything is all right. And that call didn't come through. When it came through 3 o'clock in the morning, it was sad news.
I'm from North Philadelphia. I was born in this house. And actually, Songha was born here 28 years ago. He was visiting from New York. The day before that he was to go back to New York, he was invited out by an old classmate. And I received a call at 3:30 in the morning from that same classmate that Songha had been shot and that he had thought that he had passed away. I'm still in shock. I can't believe it. It's unbelievable that such a peaceful person would die so violently. I don't understand it. And you know, this one is at Songha's graduation.
Yeah, I know that. That's to the JED, right?
The three of us together. Songha gave to people hope, joy. He was considered the light by many of his friends. I was very protective of Songha because I didn't want him to get caught up into the street life. He was a creative child, so he was an artist. He played guitar. He majored in communications. His ultimate goal was to become a broadcast journalist. He was just a great guy, just a great guy.
There's few countries in this world, other than the United States, that have the incidence of firearm injury that we do. Namely, countries that are at war, like Croatia and Bosnia. Well, we're fighting an urban war. It's really the urban-based inner-city trauma centers that are asked to take on this burden. From 1985 to 1990, there was a huge shift away from revolvers to the pistol, and specifically the 9mm semi-automatic pistol. The weapon that can fire 3 to 5 shots in a matter of seconds. It's easy to carry, it's easy to conceal, it's easy to load, it's almost foolproof to be able to use. So we started to see, instead of 1 bullet per body, we started to see 2, 3, 4, and 5. We, in this emergency department and trauma center, can see a gunshot wound a day. If you just go across the town to Temple University Hospital, the same thing. If you go to Washington, D.C., the same kind of thing in their trauma centers. And so I think one of the things that has changed so drastically is, I think physicians and I think our society have almost come to accept this as a part of American life.
If it could happen to my son, who was very good, and I'm not just saying that because he was my son. He was a good kid. He was a good child, a gentleman. If it can happen to him, it can happen to anybody's child.
Nobody can ever take away from me the memories of night after night, spending hours trying to control bleeding, trying to sew them back together, only to have them die. But the most important thing is walking out and telling a mother and father that their son or their daughter is dead when 2 hours before they were alive and well and 17 or 18 years old. That is the most hideous, painful thing that a physician ever has to do.
I don't understand it. And that's why I'm involved with programs that focus on gun control, gun legislation, and working with young people who are involved in gun-related crimes so that I can make a difference in honor of my son.
When you start looking at Texans, you've got to understand that next to a pickup truck, the gun is the most sacred thing in the state of Texas.
Somebody's breaking into your house, some drug-crazed burglar or whatever is coming into your house in the middle of the night. You don't want to be armed with something that's less than the very best thing that you could have to defend your life and your families. This is a current production Smith & Wesson automatic pistol, and this is a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson, and this one happens to have what they call combat sights on it, and which is opposed to target sights. And this is a gun that is a current gun used by police and also by people for self-defense. You want to chase a criminal that's driving a Ferrari in your Honda Civic? No, you want a Ferrari to chase him with, you know. So, you know, you have to have the right equipment for the right purpose.
The gun industry and its allies convey the image that gun violence is a result of criminals doing bad things with guns. The chances of an individual being accosted and shot and killed by a criminal who's out to do that are actually, in the universe of gun violence, very small. But the chances of someone in a home where there's a firearm being shot and killed in anger, again, depression, or unintentionally, are very much higher. The idea that that's the big fear, of course, is a wonderful marketing tool. If you get it in your head that danger is all around you and you need some implement, the modern totem is the handgun.
I understand it's very safe, and in anticipation you might want to see this. I took everything apart, so we're very safe. This is a typical little .380. This firearm is very safe, and I've got it, all the safeties on, it's unloaded. A lot of law enforcement advise people when they carry it to use a shell like this with a hollow point. The reason being is that whenever the end of this shell strikes whatever it's aimed at and hits, it's going to flare out. So thus, if a criminal is attacking you, it would have more stopping power.
I grew up in part in the projects of Dallas. I've been a social worker. My master's degree is in sociology. I've been a prosecutor, and I've been a defense attorney. So I've seen man's inhumanity to man. I've seen what handgun violence can in fact do. I've seen basically if someone has a firearm in their possession, what that does to the person in heated situations where if the person didn't have the firearm, they would not have responded in the manner in which they responded.
Would you necessarily hear the story of, you know, someone getting in an argument with their spouse and stabbing them with the scissors, and they go to the hospital and get their arm sewed up. That probably wouldn't make the news. If a husband shot his wife in a domestic argument and she went to the hospital and got her arm sewed up because he was a bad shot and shot her in the arm, that would probably be on the news. You just never know.
But the chances of her dying if he shoots her are a lot higher than if he goes after her with the scissors.
It's not necessarily true, but it could happen.
The NRA and its affiliate organizations have a wealth of financial resources available to them in order to hire some of the best lobbyists on this effort in the state of Texas, and you know, that's what they've done. And I mean, more power to them, because I mean, they're using a system.
I don't have a big quarrel with people who have a rifle or a shotgun for hunting purposes, because they can be stored and they can be kept so they aren't so dangerous. But a handgun is just an invitation to a tragedy. That's all it is. All it is. And I do know a little about guns. I served in the military in World War II. And I grew up hunting, you know, in rural Tennessee. A lot of people do accept guns as just another tool, a piece of furniture, whatever. And they don't take human nature into consideration.
I'm the executive director of Texans Against Gun Violence. We have a legislative agenda to close the gun show loophole, to reinstitute a 3-day waiting period, and would like to pass a one-gun-a-month law. Right now we're being the true grassroots people and working out of our homes. Young Texans Against Gun Violence, our youth organization, is helping us to collect shoes to represent young people who've died from gun violence in Texas.
We're passionate about making a difference. Make a difference on this issue because this is where the people are dying and this is where we want the difference to come from.
My brother took the gun out of his pocket. No one had any idea. He went out to his truck at the curb and shot himself. No one even heard the bullet. Here's this young guy he's a bright guy. He's got his troubles, and you know, he's 19 years old and I'm 21, and it's not like that's the easiest age to get along with people anyway, God knows. And here this gun shows up, you know. People that are suicidal need time bought for them. Somebody needs to be there with them to give them a couple days to cool off. That's what saves people from killing themselves generally. Getting the means out of their hands and giving them a couple of days to feel supported and kind of move out of those feelings of depression. Depression is not a permanent state. That gun in the home is meant to protect you from violent crime. This epidemic is not about random crime. Suicide is the biggest number. The second number is homicide, but at least half of the homicides are people killing family members and friends. He didn't want to die. One part of him wanted to die. The rest of him wanted to live and was struggling to live. We have to think about waiting periods and the value of waiting periods for people that are feeling homicidal and suicidal. We have to get people thinking about having that loaded gun in their house and what it could do in their family.
The common denominator on any specific kind of gun violence problem that we look at is the fact that the gun industry has flooded America not only with quantities of guns, but with guns that are more lethal. The phrase they'll use is stopping power. What is stopping power? Stopping power is making a human being drop in their tracks. And the way you do that is incapacitate them in such a way that in most instances they're going to die. That's enhanced lethality. That's what the gun industry sells. Gun industry had some very good friends in the Congress when the Basic Consumer Product Safety Act was passed, and guns were just left out, taken out. That's why there is no legislative regulatory control over the gun industry.
You know, I was probably a pretty typical parent. I really didn't have much of an opinion about guns, was not particularly interested in guns. And then suddenly, one Sunday afternoon, you know,
my son went to school first. The next thing I knew, he was calling me from his friend's house saying, could he stay for dinner? And I said, fine. His friend's father had a semi-automatic weapon, and he, the young man, had been taught to shoot, had been taken to the gun range. And he was eager to show it to his friends, and that day to my son. He knew it was loaded, so he removed the loaded cartridge and he inserted a blank one because he wanted to make it go click, and if there's no cartridge in it, the trigger won't move. So he did that and ran upstairs eager to show it, and he called my son's name and he pointed it in his direction and removed the safety and pulled the trigger, and there was one bullet in the chamber, and that's all it took.
The gun that was used to kill Kenzo was a Beretta 92 Compact L 9mm handgun. Essentially, that gun tricked this kid. Certainly, we can point to this kid and say he did a stupid thing. He's a 14-year-old kid. He made a childish mistake. And we can point to his father for storing that gun that way. But the thing is, it happens over and over and over. So you have to look at the bigger picture and say, what can we do to prevent this?
Well, obviously in the legislature, nothing was happening because the gun lobby is too strong. So, I mean, you can go for years and try to talk to people until you're blue in the face and nothing will happen. So the other avenue is the courts. I mean, that's a part of the legal system, and I believe in using whatever you can legally to make changes. Lawsuits can be very effective because it hits manufacturers in their pocketbook, and that's when they tend to listen up.
Beretta knew that this problem of people getting a hold of guns and thinking that they were unloaded when in fact there was a round in the chamber was a serious problem. They knew they could have done more about it. They didn't.
It's not like a lawsuit about your house or your car or whatever. It's about lives.
Guns are the only thing around us that's exempt from product safety regulations, and that's why these things happen over and over. There are 1,100 unintentional shootings, and a third of those could be prevented by better gun design. So that's one person a day dying from improper design of a gun that could be fixed with simple design improvements.
Anybody handling a gun, the first thing they need to know is whether there's a bullet in it or not. You look at your camera and you know there's film. It's very clear, it's apparent.
It was infuriating at times to realize that they got letter after letter from people who said, I can design something into your gun that will make it much safer, and how they ignored that. To me, any gun that doesn't have a lock built in, a chamber load indicator, and a magazine disconnect safety device is a defective product. Many people like me and like I was, are in complete denial that this could happen to them. We're just off the map in the rate at which we kill our kids with guns by putting guns in their hands, by making guns easily accessible to criminals. And it's the power of the gun lobby that is doing this against the American people. It's really outrageous. There's nothing so outrageous as this. And, you know, Lynn and I just sort of walked into this being typical parents and discovered what's going on here. And there's no excuse for it. It's really it's time to stop it.
We are the majority opinion. Americans want better regulation of guns in our society. The key is mobilizing.
With the epidemic that has occurred in the 90s, a lot of professionals have come together and say, we should not tolerate this as a free and great country.
We can advocate for responsible gun legislation. There are a number of things that we can do as a community, as a city, as a state, and as a nation to protect our children from gun violence.
In order to get it done, we're going to have to be just like any other special interest group. Our special interest is different. Our special interest is saving lives. We need a coalition. We need business involved in this. We need the police departments. We need those legislators that have been fighting this battle to continue to fight it, because I know that I will.
The most important thing is for people who feel that there's something out of whack about guns in America, find your voice.
Does this make you want to cry, shout, march? For me, it's all of the above, because while you may know me as an actor, I watch as a parent. In every one of these stories, I saw my own children and grandchildren and the danger to all American families. That's why First Monday is so important. We're fighting the gun lobby by proposing simple, sensible solutions. We're letting politicians know that they can't run from this issue anymore. We're organizing in big cities and small towns, promoting education and action to end gun violence. Who are we? We're over 175 organizations like the National Education Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and the American Bar Association. We are students from hundreds of colleges and universities across the country. And if you want to join us, you can organize a rally for common sense solutions or a candlelight vigil. Call politicians, write a letter to the editor of your local paper. Every one of us can make a difference, and the starting is simple. Just contact First Monday, and you can help stop gun violence. The First Monday team will link you up to others who also want to help. Remember Griffin and Lynn Dix, Christina Woods, Leslie Willis Lowry, and her mother Ruth. They endured the worst tragedy any family could experience, and now they're working to help us. How can we not help them? Some say the gun lobby's too strong to fight. They said the same thing about big tobacco a generation ago, and look what happened. In this new millennium, with new momentum, we can stop this senseless loss of life to guns. It's one thing to act the role of a politician. Now it's time to make the politicians act. On behalf of First Monday, I'm Martin Sheen. Thank you.